Good morning, Al Ingalls here at pressure-free.com. For most of our country, it is very cold. It's cold in Canada as well. I don't know if it's cold in Mexico, but a lot of really cold temperatures and unusual weather in places that don't get snow or ice as much as we do up north. So I thought I would talk about weather as a trigger. I remember when I was coaching a client who lived in the Northeast who shared with me how just going outside on a winter day, she would feel her throat tighten up. And so cold was a trigger for her. Not hot. Some of my clients, I had a runner I worked with who really disliked the heat. So heat was definitely a trigger for him. So extremes can definitely cause us to trigger the stress response. But let's focus on cold for a moment. Um, I've lived in the north my whole life. I've seen some amazing storms, ice storms, lots of snow, heat going out, power going out. And as a little girl or growing up, we had a summer place on Lake Winnipesaukee, but we would go up on the weekends. And we couldn't drive down the driveway, so it was quite a long little walk down through the woods to get to our place, carrying all our supplies and our clothes and everything. And then we get there, and the place would be freezing cold. So we had a big wood stove, and that would heat things up. And I learned a few things growing up that way. Number one is if you tighten like this because you're cold, it's like you're stopping you're tensing up and you're preventing all your body processes like to work for you. And you're probably triggering fight or flight, like you're afraid of the cold. So if you think about opening and relaxing, wearing layers, like I just had a couple layers on here, um, layers definitely help. So I would always have like three layers, a base layer, and then like a sweater, and then a jacket, just depending. So three, four layers even sometimes. So wearing layers definitely helps. Um, us three girls would cuddle together in front of the wood fire. So body heat from another human is very helpful. We become a little more isolated. Like I grew up in a house with one bathroom, and at first all three of us were in one room, and then we split up and two of us were in a room. My middle sister had her own room, but we used to be closer together. Now the houses are bigger, the rooms are far apart. Sometimes you have the parents on one floor and the children on another, so we're not as cozy. um so creating cozy space that can really be helpful. um Getting close. uh Noting that when you watch the news about the weather, that's a huge trigger for a lot of people. And sometimes the forecasts are so inaccurate. It was supposed to be very, very cold where I am yesterday, and the temperature was fairly cold, but the sun was blazing. And there was hardly any wind. So it felt very warm because with all the snow, the sun reflects off the snow and it's actually warm. And I remember on Lake Winnipesaukee, we'd go skating in t-shirts in the middle of the winter because the sun was out and there was no wind. It was beautiful. My mother'd be sitting out there in a lawn chair ice fishing with my father, and she's got a t-shirt on. So it might not be as cold as they're telling you it's cold because of the sun's reflection, if there is sun. Wind is certainly a factor. Scarves, even this like little light scarf, sometimes I will wear that and I'll just bring it up around. And then I have a big woolly scarf too. But definitely covering the face if you need to, if it's really cold. Wearing a hat. When I was a runner as a teen, I would wear a hat and mittens, but sometimes I'd be running in a t-shirt and shorts in the winter. But as long as my hands and my head were warm, I was fine. I ran in a blizzard once, and it was kind of an ice stormy blizzard, and my eyebrows and eyelashes froze. So, so I think that's the other thing is movement. You don't have to go for a run, but if you're outside and you're moving, you will quickly warm up within your layers. I mean, why do people ski, right? So some people will see the weather report and be like, yay, we're skiing this weekend, or we're skating on the ice because ice is built. And then other people like, oh no, it's so cold. I think another factor is we drive more. When I was a child, we walked to school. Even in the freezing cold, we walked to school, like over a mile, to junior high. Sometimes we'd get a ride, but most of the time we were walking, and so our bodies are moving, and we weren't that cold. We really weren't. But now we drive, and certainly driving conditions are a deal. I remember all these cars trying to go up a hill by my house in the like when the roads weren't plowed right or it was icy and they couldn't get up the hill, right? So I know that a lot of people kind of freak out about the weather because they have a drive, they have a commute, and don't want to be driving in that weather. I was driving through some pretty nasty storms when I was coming out east this week, and one right in Michigan was total whiteout. And so a couple things. First of all, we don't need to be in a rush, and we can pull off. If you're on a long trip, if that kind of makes you nervous about the weather and a long trip, just remember you can just pull off at any exit and at any rest stop. You can pull off. You could stay a night. My son and I were coming back from Faribault, Minnesota, when he was playing Midget Major AAA. Luckily, they let the players whose parents had driven that far go home with parents. So my son was with me because we were caught in a blizzard. And about halfway through, I'm like, maybe we should just stop and spend the night. But we did keep going, got behind the snowplows in Chicago, which was great. But uh, but that was a harrowing trip. I've had a few hockey harrowing trips. So driving and weather can definitely be a thing. Again, no matter what is happening with the weather, the best thing for you to do is not trigger the stress response because that's going to wick fat and glucose from your extremities, and that's going to make you colder. I got a question from someone asking me, okay, what is the stress response? So I thought I'd take a minute to share that. Um, Stress response is your body's natural mechanism to protect you from a true physical threat. So this mechanism was very handy for thousands of years because we might be under attack by other tribes, by animals, wild animals, catastrophic things where we had no shelter. So we have this mechanism that brings fat and glucose from our extremities, gives it right into the bloodstream. So we have a massive amount of energy, and this one nerve is going to go bing right to the center of your adrenal glands to trigger a release of stress hormones called catecholamines. It's that adrenaline rush. So adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine. So some people have a high from it and are addicted to it. There's dopamine in there. So we get that release, and now we can like flailingly fight or flailingly run away. I used to coach middle school track, and I could always tell if my runners were had triggered the stress response because they weren't like controlled running. There was a little bit of flailingness in the running. There's a little bit of uncoordinatedness in my athletes who were doing high jump and other events. So I could tell that they triggered fight or flight. So that's its purpose, right? And now in the 21st century, most people are not under attack all the time. Some people are asking for it, and they're going into arenas where they want to have that experience. Um, but for the most part, we're going to work, we're doing our jobs where, sometimes I wonder how people have time to do some of the things they do if they were actually working. But it's interesting what people choose to do and how they choose to behave, right? We have choice. That's the one amazing gift that as humans we have choice. So we're just like every other animal when it comes to fight or flight, but we do have choice and we have agency. And so that's what the pressure-free method is about. It's about reclaiming that agency because we've been triggering the stress response before we were even born, because our mothers would get stressed now and then for sure. And so we have this natural ability to easily go into the stress response. Plus, we imitated people. our parents, our caregivers, anyone we were spending time around when we were very young, we were imitating things. So if someone spilled something in the kitchen and had an overreaction, you may to this day have an overreaction when somebody spills something in the kitchen. They're just spilling something in the kitchen. It's not a physical attack, right? But we'll still react. So when it comes to weather, it's the same thing. So if you get a weather report or you're in weather, you can check yourself and you have about 10 seconds before the whole mechanism of fight or flight begins, that stress response begins. 10 seconds is plenty of time to say, I don't need to stress out here. Like I'm just driving to work. Or I need to go outside and shovel and it's -2 degrees, but I can bundle up, I can relax my body, blood flow is going to continue, and I'm not going to wick blood and fat and glucose from my extremities, which would make my hands and my head colder. So staying pressure free has so many benefits when it comes to the cold. Also, if you're driving, your hands will stay relaxed on the steering wheel. Tense hands can jerk the wheel. Now you're off in the ditch. So soft hands, just like on a hockey stick, soft hands. You know, if your hands are too tense, then little micro movements are gonna, your shot's gonna be off. So same thing driving. Um, so I hope this is making sense, like triggering over the weather. When I think back to that client who was triggered by the cold, I remember about a year after I had coached her, she sent me this message that she and her fiance went to Niagara Falls in the cold. Right? It was like a breakthrough that she was no longer, going outside and feeling that throat tightening. All that was the stress response. And so and also too, if you have like a really serious reaction to something, like maybe the weather, practicing pressure free with other things is really great. One of my certification clients is my daughter-in-law, Emma Woodhouse, and she coaches skiers. And we were just talking together about how working off season on the mental game is so great. So then when you get in race time, you've practiced with all these other things. Same with what I teach my clients. So a lot of my clients come to me for performance at work, to perform at a higher level. My student athletes, my student performers, they want to perform with less anxiety, want to perform better. But if we can practice pressure free in all the moments of our day, then when we get to those bigger moments, you have a natural subconscious pattern you've created that allows you to interrupt that stress response. So that's what happened to me when I was about to travel, and here comes the whiteout snow. I know that before pressure free, I would have definitely triggered. First of all, thinking, oh my God, this is going to take me so long. And I told my client I would be here then, and like all this stuff, right? All these things go through our heads and we pile on, right? I would say too that most of the people who come to work with me are really responsible. So they want to do a good job. They want to excel and be better at what they're already doing. And so that responsibility can cause this a little bit of tightness too, because like we're really striving for something. And so unwinding that and realizing that when we get into flow state, when we get into the zone, as I call it, like athletes usually call that, and musicians too, it's like we're so in the zone. It's like nothing can go wrong, right? Um, so watch the weather report. It's not always accurate. And I think different parts of the country it's more accurate or not. But I remember when I was in college, I had my bike with me. I wanted to go on this long bike ride, and the weather report said it was going to be rainy, and it didn't rain all that day. I could have had a great bike ride. Instead, I stayed in my dorm room thinking it was going to rain. So go outside and check the weather. That's the easiest way to know what's going on. And certainly the forecasts are more accurate today, but I've seen things just not be accurate at all. And love that sunshine when it comes out in the winter. It's definitely a blessing, and it feels great, and it's makes you warm because of all the reflection from the snow. Snow, if you get a lot of snow too, it's like an insulator. Like it can really create more warmth when there's layers of snow around even a house. And so I found that to be true too. So I wish you a great pressure-free day, and I'll hopefully be on tomorrow morning too, as I'm traveling here. And I apologize for missing yesterday if you watch my show every day. So I wish you a great day, of course. Bye.